Hello, hello. My name is April Malone with Yes, I Work From Home, and this is the podcast. Today I have Regina Uribe with us from Arizona. She's an ed tech specialist, professional. So, Regina, I just want to hear a little bit about how did you get into this, and at what point did you start working from home?
Yeah, I never thought I would be working from home. I mean, I started pre-pandemic
Mhm.
around August 2019, so just before the pandemic. And I think
Mhm.
I got lucky in that then I didn't feel as like shocked when I did have to work from home. And I'll get into that a little bit. But, around August, I started having childcare issues. I have two kids, one on the way. My daughter is now 6, my son is 2. My daughter has special needs. And so um, it's really hard. She was, I think, in the summer, if you there's no daycares for special needs children, so you have to
Mm.
have either a nanny or find a special situation. And so when we started having issues with childcare, I had to make a decision to cut back my hours. So I worked for ASU for almost 9 years, and loved it. Didn't think I would be leaving, and all of a sudden had to make the decision of putting my family first. And I think many moms have been there where you're put in a tough spot and you have to make
Mhm.
that choice, and it's hard. I love working. I think I'm a better mom when I work and when I'm a professional. Like,
Mhm.
blessed stay-at-home moms that love it. I'm not one of them.
Mhm.
And so I started, but needed to work because of health insurance,
Okay.
because I was the one that, was had the better health insurance, and with
Yep.
my daughter, we just needed it. So was able to like really work my network and find a solution, working part time still at ASU at night, and
Oh, wow. So
mhm,
ASU is Arizona State University.
yes.
And really quick, were we talking about you started having the childcare issues August of 2019 or August this past year?
2019, yeah.
Okay.
So pre-pandemic, kind of in that summer, knew I was going to be kind of nannyless. We had a nanny prior to that,
Yeah.
and um, didn't have uh, the money really back then to
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
be able to afford a new one. And
Yeah.
um, yeah,
And you said that you started working evenings, yeah, at the university. What kind of job is available at that time?
it was kind of a really unique situation where I was an executive assistant, nothing that I studied. Prior to that, I was doing kind of innovation management, but kind of took an executive assistant job to a vice president there, to a kind of, and just did some admin work at night. So really kind of this was a very unique situation, and ones that doesn't exist, but
Uh,
was able to kind of make it work in that situation. And so worked from home from 8 to midnight. So that was a fun, I did that for like about 6 months.
no, the person that you were supporting, were they also awake and working with you during those hours, or were you working asynchronously and just like wrapping up tasks that they needed from earlier in the day?
Sometimes working odd hours, sometimes asynchronous. A lot of it was asynchronous, but
Hmm.
random requests would come in, and I'd be there to help out. So it was, again, very unique situation. After a while, the job wasn't continued, and I think stars aligned where, as I was doing that, I was doing some contracting work
Hmm.
with a consulting company, and kind of was able to then transition into a new job May of 2020. So like
Okay.
right in the middle of the pandemic, started a
Wow.
new job with a new company, new coworkers, but had wanted to work on remotely on purpose.
And that was 100%. You were onboarded into a new position without ever stepping a foot on site?
I have not met any of my coworkers.
in real life?
Yeah, in real life. This is so now for an ed tech company that I work at, started in May 2020, based out of Denver. And I've never met any of my coworkers. Um, and it's been so weird to think that, I feel so connected to them and so close to the team, but I've never met them.
Mhm.
With the exception of my boss, well, the VP, because I knew them from a prior job.
Okay.
Everyone else haven't met, so it's been kind of wild.
How do you feel connected? Like what have you done as a team that has helped you feel connected to your team?
Sure. So, I mean, I think we all live on Zoom, but what has been nice is that this team really works to make space for getting to know one another in a personal level. And I think some people that might have gone from like in the office to Zoom, there was this blurring of kind of personal and work life, right? You were
Mhm.
no longer able to keep your personal life personal. Like people were
Yeah.
seeing your home, kids were bombing your Zoom, like all of that became a thing and became normalized.
Mhm.
I think while that some people felt it can be hard for some people, I think in our situation where our team is remote first, um, I think that created a place where we felt more comfortable kind of being personal and kind of letting that window into our lives.
Mhm.
And so we do a lot of like random socials via Zoom. We once had like a happy hour. They taught us how to make like whiskey sours and like hired a like, so it's kind of, you have to be very intentional. Like what randomly happens in the office, you have to be very intentional about recreating in a remote world.
With your personality type, would you say that you were very receptive to that? It sounds like you like that, where other people might be more introverted and not feel a little bit pressured to join in on that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I am. I think because I'm an open book, it
Yeah.
doesn't bother me to kind of like display my personal life, what my situation is. Um, and I feel like I think you can make connections anywhere. Um, and I think it's just about being vulnerable and being open.
Mhm.
I think like you can make those friendships,
Mhm.
but can definitely understand people that might feel more hesitant to do it.
Mhm. Would you say that most of your team have a similar like family structure as you, or do you have any single people who don't have any children or single moms who might feel like they don't, I don't know, jive in the same way as the rest of you do?
Oh yeah, no, everyone has a completely different like living situation. Some have partners, some have kids,
Mhm.
some are single. I think what we all have in common is like a passion for our job,
Okay, good.
and our passion for making a difference in education and in upskilling, and like
Mhm.
that drives us and that connects us. And I think that makes it easier when we're trying to kind of meet with one another like via Zoom and get projects
Mhm.
done. You just get used to a different cadence. um
Yeah, it sounds like you found a good rhythm, and that's been a year, a year and a month.
yeah, just over a year being at the company. And it's, yeah, you like, well, the thing that will be interesting now that the office has offices around the country, headquartered in Denver. Now it's going into kind of hybrid mode, where
Mhm.
you have places that are going to be, and coworkers that are going to be in person.
Yeah.
And there's part of like this, like, FOMO that goes on of like, what am I missing if I'm not there?
Yeah.
Thankfully, my unit is remote first, so many of them are across the country. And so
Right.
I think many companies are going to struggle with this dynamic of like, how do you ensure that people feel a sense of belonging, particularly in this hybrid world? I
Yeah.
was actually just reading an article that was talking about like the potential emergence of like corporate retreats, and how Salesforce was like wanting to buy a ranch to have like, you know, a place where they could do like a weekend away where you like fly employees over and have them kind of create this like in-person connections. It's an interesting concept. Who knows what's going to happen post-COVID?
Interesting. So you mentioned FOMO, like fear of missing out. What kind of things, and I know what other people have said, but what about you? Is there anything that you feel like you might miss out on by not being in person?
Yeah. So kind of working in ed tech and more in like innovation space, you know, the cross pollination of ideas is really important, right? Like the random meetings with a coworker on the hallway where you say, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? Creates those connections. And so when you're all remote, or some of you are remote, some are in person, there's this sense of like, how do you maintain the crossing of information across the kind of the physical and the virtual? You know, I think companies have to be much more intentional about information flows, and individuals have to be maybe more strategic about creating relationships across the company to kind of keep an ear on the ground of what's going on.
Do you feel like you ever have opportunity for a one-on-one conversation? Since you are often in Zoom, is it your whole team, or do you ever have one-on-ones?
Well, we have a ton of one-on-ones. Yeah. So
Okay.
the challenge is that then you have like a gazillion meetings that you have to keep.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So when do you work is the question. So, you know, that can create a challenge of like, how do you balance meetings and work time and making sure that meetings are productive, but maintaining relationships. You know, even as like, you know, one of the things that I think has helped me in feeling a sense of belonging is just volunteering for different initiatives and corporate initiatives. Like I've helped start our employee resource group for Latinos at our company.
Cool.
And while that has meant a little bit of extra hours, it has also allowed me to kind of create more connections with other coworkers outside of my unit.
Right. And what about your scheduling? You mentioned like, when do I work? Do you actually log in and log off at a set time every day, or is it a little bit more fluid and flexible?
Kind of a combination. So, you know, I try and work in a window from like 8 to 5-ish. Well, why I say ish is because one of the other reasons why I wanted to work remote, and for me working remotely and at home is ideal, is because I have my daughter with special needs. She has therapies 3 times a week.
Okay.
And they're scheduled kind of at random times across, you know, and making sure that they don't interfere with school. And so, you know, it just depends. If it's a therapy day, I might work a little bit more, or might, you know, start earlier, or work at night, or work maybe a couple of hours on the weekend. But I have that flexibility. And I think also what that has allowed me is to be more efficient with my time, because I don't have to travel to and from the office, right? And lose that time traveling back and forth.
Of course.
But then also I think there's this sense of a reduced sense of pressure, right? In that, because you go into a kind of almost like a social contract saying, with at least with my corporation, where you have that flexibility, where as long as you're in the meetings you have to be and doing the work that you have to do, you can start a little bit later, end a little bit later, take an appointment here, go to the doctor there. And that has allowed me to maybe put less pressure on myself and feel less guilty about having, I think, this mom guilt, right? That you experience, that you have to like juggle your professional life and advance and get your work done, but still have to do all the other things that you have to do for your kids or pick them up from school. Like, working from home has reduced that guilt so much for me. And maybe it's like all in my mind and I created it, but it's like that has allowed me, given me like the okay. It was like an informal okay, like Regina, it's okay. You can be flexible. Just get your work done.
Well, it sounds like you walked into a culture of flexibility and that your teammates and, leadership are accepting that sort of structure. Where some people feel like they have to crack down even harder on, clocking in and clocking out because we can't see you physically, so we need to make sure you're here. So everybody, I've heard stories of people all having to say hello first thing when they come in and, goodbye at the end of the day, and some weird little things that kind of it just comes with the culture. And it sounds like you guys have developed a culture of flexibility and openness, and it sounds like you were really lucky to find this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's important to recognize that not every company has that culture, but I think more companies should.
Yeah.
Right? I think why can't we have more corporations that trust their employees? And why can't we move to more output focus and outcomes focus instead of number of hours that you work? So yeah, definitely very, very lucky. Love where I work, love the culture that the corporation has, and really kind of committed to supporting professionals. So definitely it's a privilege.
I feel like the more that a company is trusting and that more respected that the employees feel, the more they want to do well for the company. And I know that there's always going to be the people that are going to abuse it. But the more that people feel distrusted, they're just going to give the bare minimum, is my opinion. So I hope some leaders out there are listening, as you're trying to think of how you're going to make your company going forward. Now that the pandemic is, changing gears, I can't say it's done. A lot of companies are asking their employees to come back. Some of them are giving them the option to do a hybrid. Some of them are saying, 50% or, do you want to stay at home? And I hope that people are listening to this sort of thing, the culture that you create, and the more options, I think the happier you keep your employees. I hope that you'll see more productivity in the end.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I mean, you even see that with companies that are going to 4 days a week,
Yeah.
where, employees can, if put, if trusted, can meet that bar. And like you said, maybe it's not right for every role. It's not right for every job. There are jobs that require you to kind of be more consistent and be available from a period and window. So definitely understand that. But
It depends, of course, on the structure of your actual workflow.
yeah.
So, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah. So I work at a tech company called Guild Education, and they our mission is to help unlock economic mobility through upskilling and education. So what's really great, it's like a company who's very mission driven and unlocking economic education opportunities by working with top employers like Walmart, Lowe's, and helping connect, encourage employers to offer free degrees or free upskilling to their employees. So if people that work at Walmart or Chipotle are able to get free education, certificates, degrees, and that's through Guild and our academic partners. So we kind of serve as a marketplace and as a connector between the employers, the academic partners, and the students to create kind of a win-win situation.
Who pays for the education?
The employers do. So using the right now, I think a ton of employers provide tax benefit. So usually if you work for a large corporation, you can get X amount that paid for, and then the employer gets a tax benefit. So it's kind of through a similar, using kind of current structures and encouraging employers. It's a benefit to the employers when their employees are able to gain education and upskill and huge value for employee retention as well.
When I worked for Mayo Clinic up in Minnesota, they did that where they had a reimbursement program. So if I were to attend my college courses, I did my master's degree, I had to pay everything up front, put some of it on a credit card, unfortunately. And then at the end of the semester, when the grades were finally released, then I could submit an application showing my grades, and then they would reimburse me. But there is some, barriers as far as accessibility. Would you say that this program that you're working with is more free for the student in that situation?
Yeah, so students in certain programs and for certain academic providers, they are able to not have to pay anything up front,
Yeah,
which is
that was a
great,
hardship.
right?
Yeah, definitely a barrier for a lot of people. Like they'd be like, of course I want to, but how am I going to pay up front? Because I'd have to carry the weight. And like a master's degree, of course, is,
Mm-hmm.
a lot per credit, even thousands and thousands of dollars just to get through one semester, and then hold that weight until, 5 months later, I finally get my grades. Oh my gosh. I'm stressed out
Yeah,
just remembering.
I just finished my master's in December, and so I felt that I had to kind of upfront that final credit, and
Mhm.
thankfully, I was able to do it. But absolutely, financial barrier is a huge barrier for many people
Mhm.
in exploring any types and different types of education opportunities.
So when you first told me that you worked for an ed tech company, I was imagining, working with all these K through 12 schools that have tried to go online, but actually you're talking about adult employees.
Yeah, yep, higher education, kind of post-secondary education.
Got it.
Well, actually, it's anything but adult learners, yes.
Mhm.
Anything
Mhm.
from like GED, completing high school,
Uh-huh.
to like certificates,
Mhm.
to associates, bachelor's, masters. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to go back and talk a little bit about when you first started working from home. I like to kind of go back and just kind of get a feel for, how did you feel about that? Like you said that the reason that you felt driven to work from home is because of the childcare situation. Was it something that you saw after? Did you approach anyone saying, do you know of any work from home opportunities, or did that just kind of fall into your lap?
Yeah, no, I had to like really like leverage my network and
Yeah.
talked with a lot of people. And I kind of have a weird situation in that my most of my professional career, I've like crafted my own roles. So I
Mm.
felt a little bit more comfortable doing so.
Mhm.
And so through kind of conversations, was able to say like, well, what do you need? How can I help you? Here are my strengths.
Mhm.
Um, and kind of come to a solution where I could provide a benefit and kind of create a situation that worked for me. I think oftentimes, for the most part, I think yes, there are jobs that are posted there for a reason, but it also never hurts to like put an ear on the ground, or have informal conversations with your network and say, here's
Mhm.
what I offer. Like, what could we, is there an opportunity to collaborate or to create a role that fits your needs, or to modify a
Mhm.
role to kind of fit your needs? Is it like, does it happen everywhere and for everyone? No. But I think it's an option that maybe people don't think about, that it could happen.
Did you go straight from working a desk job in an office to, um, like on Friday, finish up, close up shop, and start on Monday working this kind of executive assistant type job? Did you get to bring anything home from the university, or was it like an informal arrangement just with that one person?
Yeah, so I was able to like get support from kind of the new unit, and they provided me everything that I needed to work from home,
Awesome.
and was able to then start once I had my desk set up and my technology set up. Nothing, I didn't need anything fancy, a laptop and a screen.
Okay.
So definitely was provided with what I needed to ensure that I worked from home, and was able to do so. And same
Good.
thing kind of with my new corporation when I switched over, was able to kind of, they had a process for onboarding remote people, and I was able to kind of
Mhm.
get that support that I needed.
So a lot of the people that I've interviewed in the recent episodes have been entrepreneurs who were on their own, kind of setting their own, path, starting off, with whatever they have. But you are working for an employer. What was that onboarding situation like? Like, were there videos, or did you have like one-on-ones with people for training?
Yeah. So for like when I first moved with the same company to the remote, there's like not obviously there wasn't a lot of onboarding. So it almost required a lot of communication on my part to be like, all right, I'm online. What do you want me to do?
Uh-huh.
And it required a little bit of like, working together to figure things out, and set a cadence for my kind of when I joined the guild, they had a whole process and had worked together, had a kind of like an onboarding process, like 2-week process to learn about the company and the culture and so it was just a lot of Zoom meetings. But they did have a more formal process. So, but
Did you get to sorry,
ahead.
did you get to shadow anybody?
No. I mean, there wasn't anyone in the company that had my role. So it was, it was, I'm full of like weird situations. It was an acquisition of another company into Guild. And so everything was new. It was like, everything was new for everyone. And I think in that sense, it was nice because we were all going, there was like 100 people going through the transition together. And I think that maybe that was unique and kind of created a space where like everyone was remote because of the pandemic. And then everyone was joining a new company.
Yeah.
While the pandemic was going on.
Right.
It was a very unique situation.
Yeah, but it sounds like it was kind of like the perfect storm as far in a good way. Perfect storm in a good way. That you guys kind of had that bonding experience of going through the same thing at the same time. I know when I'm trying to think, like when my husband onboarded into his company, he was just the new guy and you were all the new guy at the same time.
Yeah. And I think I wonder, like, would we feel as close? Would we feel as close knit if we hadn't gone through that experience together? And I, if the majority of the company was in person still, and some were still remote, how would that be? So definitely, I think for me, it's made me more aware and for the future, I want to be more inclusive and be aware of who isn't remote, so that they feel kind of a sense of belonging. And so for like the ERG that I mentioned, the Employer Resource Group for Latinos, there are many of them based in Denver. And I'm always the one saying, but remember, we have remote people. How can we make this inclusive? And it just requires, again, I think companies and individuals just have to be more intentional about maintaining those social connections. And it's hard.
Do you have people that are all over the country working for this one organization based out of Denver?
Yeah.
How do you handle the time zone differences? You were across 3 or 4 hours.
I mean, you just schedule meetings, kind of, where people are based. So you just have to be aware. Sometimes it can create a challenge in making sure that people are available at the same time, might shorten a window. But at the same time, I think there is this social contract of flexibility. So, if you try and be as accommodating as possible to people across different time zones, if a majority of the time zones are in one person might need to work a little bit later one meeting, but we try and really just be thoughtful and inclusive in when we're crafting meetings where people are located. It's kind of weird for Arizona because we're like, sometimes I'm Pacific time, sometimes I'm Denver time.
Yep. I hear you. I usually can keep it straight, but when I did my last interview, I confessed for everyone to hear that I actually messed up the time. She wanted to set it for 10:30 Eastern time. And in my brain, 10 time, I actually usually know this, but my sister just moved across the country from Eastern time into Mountain time, and something in my brain switched and I just got it wrong. So during the middle of my interview, my alarm clocks were going off to remind me to start the interview. Thankfully, we met at the same time. But yeah, it's right around the time of daylight savings time. It can be a little confusing when people don't always realize that Arizona has not switched their time, and it's confusing. I just say I'm on Pacific time at this time of year. I'm on Mountain time.
Yeah, and it's funny because as I reflect, for me, it sometimes means like I think right now I start earlier, like I work 8 to 5. When I'm in Denver, I'm working later. I'm working, when I'm not in Pacific time with some of my coworkers, I work later 9 to 6. So it's like my calendar, my thing shifts according to time zones.
When I worked for Mayo, I had to change my time. Everyone else in Minnesota stayed in their central time zone, except for their clocks were changing and mine wasn't. But that meant I had to change an hour forward, an hour back.
Yeah.
And what that got tricky around was the time of school getting out. Sometimes I had to race the kids home and like basically log in on my desk, and my babysitter was supposed to be walking down the street, and sometimes she showed up, sometimes she didn't, and I'd be starting work and my babysitter wouldn't be there. And then the piano lessons would start, and it was a little confusing for the after school part because I was working kind of like a second shift into the third shift hours. So yeah, Arizona does kind of present a little bit of unique challenge with time zones. What did they give you as far as equipment?
Just a laptop. And then you're able to kind of request additional things according to your needs. So I think everyone has different needs and different ways that they like to work. And so you're able to kind of request other stuff. I already had a second monitor. So for me, that was huge. I need to have multiple monitors. But they just provided a laptop, but I can request more as needed.
How do you feel about your desk setup? Do you feel comfortable? Is it ergonomic?
So my desk is just like a table. My chair is ergonomic. I'm very flexible where I work, though, I think I do try and keep my chair ergonomic, and I used to have like an ergonomic keyboard and an ergonomic mouse, but since I started Guild, I don't have those.
You haven't requested them yet?
No, I haven't, but I actually don't like, I'm like, it's more stuff on your desk that I don't need. So it definitely, I think as long as I have my second screen, for me, that's enough. But I know
as long as you're not in pain or getting uncomfortable, as soon as you start to get the aches and pains, I would definitely get on that. It's more for me, usually the height of my keyboard tray is one of the most important factors for me. And so when I was trying to type at a straight table, that's when I started having problems with, sorry, I'm adjusting, with, what do they call it? It's not carpal tunnel, tendonitis. I started to get, numbness in my hands. And that's when I was driven to go ahead and get the adjustable keyboard tray.
Yeah. Haven't had it yet, but we'll definitely
stay tuned. Right. Let's talk about you've mentioned a few times that you've got kiddos. Where are they while you're working?
Yeah, so they're at home. Well, with the pandemic, they've been at home. It's been a challenge like all of us. But particularly I got pregnant in November.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm doing August, but right at the height of the pandemic, and schools in Arizona were still open. My daughter's special needs, she doesn't wear a mask. So I was like, she was going to school, and I was just like praying to God that everything would be okay. And then I got pregnant, and I'm like, oh my gosh, now what do I do? Like, what if I get sick? She hasn't gotten sick, but then December got horrible. And so she's been home. She didn't go to school for the whole semester just because I just had a lot of anxiety of what would happen to her, to me. And then it kind of got too late to send her back. So it's just been a weird semester, and she's been at home with my son. I am so, so, so blessed that I have a cousin that lives with us. Kind of created a win-win situation where, she's able to live here rent free, and we get along really well, and she helps me with the kiddos during the day.
All right. Was that the situation? Like, did she come to your home for that reason?
Yeah, we were able to kind of in looking for childcare options, was able to kind of create that solution for us, and that's been just a huge blessing. Again, just because for many special needs parents, the struggle of finding good and consistent childcare. So I don't take it for lightly or for granted that we just got lucky to happen to have a family member who
Oh, wow.
we don't mind living with us all the time, and who's a great help during the day.
So can you kind of walk us through like what a typical day would look like for you? Like when do you see your kids and when do you get to work?
Yeah. So my daughter has sleep issues due to she has Angelman syndrome. It's a rare neurological disorder. And one of the things that happens with it is sleep issues. So she can wake up anywhere from 3:50 to 5:30, depending on the day. So I never know when I'm waking up. Lately, it's been better. So we chill kind of early in the morning, and then my 2-year-old wakes up anywhere from 6 to 7:30. None of my kids, I guess, have consistent sleep cycles. I don't know how other parents do it. But yeah, so in the morning, we just kind of chill together. We play, we watch TV. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes the parent guilt of watching TV hits, but whatever. Right now, pregnant, 3rd trimester, my brain is done. I just want to cuddle and not think. So that's what we do in the morning.
We have watched a lot more TV in the last year than I would care to admit.
Yeah. We're
all
just
a lot of bonding time in the morning.
Oh yeah,
Do you do breakfast together?
We do breakfast together, and then around 8 or 9, depending on meetings, that's when I'll start work. And I kind of have my son right now is very much into like, no, don't leave. So we kind of have started a routine where I say, okay, bye-bye, mama has to go to work, and give me a kiss. And he gets it because I've seen once I do that, then he's like, okay, bye-bye, mama.
Cool.
So that's been nice.
They know you're at home?
They know I'm at home. So what's hard is with my daughter, sometimes I'm working and I hear mama, because she's nonverbal as well, but can say mama. So she's mama, 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 and she's whining, and it's hard. It is hard having your kids there and working, and you just have to tune it out. Like I have to be firm and just tune it out in order to succeed. Otherwise, I would be out there, and once I leave my room, I try and only leave my room to go eat or get water. But if they see me, that disrupts them,
I bet. Where is your office?
It's in my bedroom. So I have, access to bathroom and my desk. That's all I need. I only like leave my office. Usually I'm back-to-back meetings or kind of have high priority items. So I don't have time to sometimes eat anyways. But I'll go out and I eat, grab something to eat and bring it back to my desk. And if they see me, it can disrupt things. So I'd say they're getting more used to seeing me at random times. And, I don't make a big fuss, or sometimes I like run across so that they don't see me. It has its challenges.
It's reminded me of the years when we had part-time nannies. I worked those weird hours into the early morning, sometimes overnight even. And we had part-time nannies. So they'd come for a few hours in the morning. And I'd text them. I'd be like laying in my bed and be like, I need to come out for some reason. I need to go out the front door and go to an appointment or something like that. Like when I was pregnant too. And go see if you can find any birds in the backyard or just something to get them out of this line of sight. Or if you're in the front yard, I'm going to sneak out the back or something like that. You had to get a little creative.
Yeah, for sure.
So you don't usually do lunch together. You're usually working through your lunch, because I guess that's when the concentration of all those meetings is from the people from all over the place, probably.
Yeah, eat through lunch. Obviously I'm there, and what's I guess the hardest thing about having them there and me working is that there's a lot of interruptions sometimes with like text of like, hey, this is needed, or my diaper blowout, I need help. So like I'm there, which is also good, because I'm able to troubleshoot, but there's still kind of a burden that you have to juggle of like random things come up, and you thought you would have work time, and you thought you would have 2 hours work time, and now you have maybe even an hour work time.
Yeah.
An hour flew
Yeah.
by. So you just, it's hard. It's if like, I don't think a person, if so like my husband could not work from home at all because
No.
he needs like total focus, no noise. Like if he is like out of his attention mode, it takes him like another hour to come back. I'm able to kind of pivot quickly. You know, some days better than others. When I'm not pregnant, even better. But like pregnancy brain is also real. It's a struggle.
Yep.
But yeah, like I think it's not for everyone. And I think if you can't like if you need quiet and focus time, my situation would not work for you.
Mm-hmm. But some people are working remotely with nobody in the house.
Exactly.
So, you said that during the pandemic they are at home, but are you looking toward anything different for coming up fall here or?
Well, so my daughter will go back to school. So, she, you know, I'll have to deal with from 8 to 3. She'll have school. And so I'll have kind of an interruption in the middle of the day where I have to go pick her up and bring her back quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of how you were saying, like rushing back
Yep.
to get into your next
Yep.
meeting.
Is your cousin able to drive them or no?
No, she doesn't like to drive. So I take that on still. But my cousin would be with my newborn now and my
Oh,
toddler.
right. Okay. Um, let's chat a little bit about what you're looking forward to in the future, like your perfect day once your 6-year-old is back in her school setting. How would you think that will change?
I mean, I really don't think it will change much, except like she's going to be happier and more engaged, and I'm not going to feel as guilty when she has bad days and doesn't want to play. So I think nothing's going to change for me. I think it's going to change for my kids, where my son might have more one-on-one time or more time with the baby. And my daughter is going to have more engagement at school and be able to see friends and not be as bored sometimes at home. But for me, nothing. Everything's going to stay the same.
And so you'll have your built-in family member ready to help with the newborn.
Yeah.
Are you anticipating taking some time off?
Yeah, thankfully, my company provides 14 weeks of paid leave. So
Wow.
huge blessing.
Wow.
Yeah, huge blessing. And so yeah, I'll be home a couple of months, kind of in the chaos of childcare and raising a newborn and figuring out a new routine. But again, I recognize how blessed I am in the situation, and the company that I work for is awesome. And it's like a best case scenario. Had this opportunity not showed up, I don't know if I would have been working right now.
Sounds like a dream situation overall. Now, speaking of situations, Arizona's getting really hot this week.
So hot, like 115. And it's hard when you have kids. All they want to do is want to go out. I don't want to go out. It's so hot. Like I hate the heat. I thought I would leave Arizona after college, and I'm still here.
Yep. We have a birthday happening this week, and I'd like to get out and do an adventure. Last year, this time of year, we were not leaving the house for like 4 months. We were being really weird and just staying in and, making the most of it in the house. But now I'm like, you know what? Because last year when we had a birthday, I just basically spent the money that I would have paid for like a birthday party on just more presents. And we did a treasure hunt of presents through the house. And this year we're trying to save money. I'm not working as much teaching as I usually am because the kids are all home. And so I'm like, let's save money, but do an adventure and just get out and beat the heat in the morning. So we're going to like get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go drive somewhere interesting, try to avoid the fires. We're also in the middle of fire season here in Arizona. Pretty rough, but it's going to be 90 degrees even at like the crack of dawn. So it's just going to get hotter from there.
I know. Maybe you can go to a lake at 5 in the morning.
Maybe.
That would maybe. I think unless you have we don't have a pool, but that's the only way I'm outside. I go to my mom's house and we hang out at the pool.
Yeah.
In the mornings.
Neighborhood pool. But I was going to ask you, like, what about social life for you? Like, I know you're a busy mom with 3 kiddos and you have a little bit of a wonky sleep schedule. Uh, how have you been able to maintain relationships while working and working from home?
I mean, you know, texts and stuff like that, but frankly, right now, I I haven't, I haven't maintained social relationships, and it's something that I know I'm craving, and I'm hoping post pandemic life and post baby, maybe
Mhm.
once baby, at the end of the year, I can re-engage some of my
Right.
friends. I think thankfully we're all in that same space, maybe, or many of us
Mhm.
are, where we've stayed in touch with many people but haven't seen
Mhm.
them in a really long time.
Yeah.
So the struggle is real to kind of
Yeah.
find and keep connections and keep your friendships.
Regina and I met in a Facebook group for moms
Mhm.
locally. And I feel like even though I don't know people in those groups, like in some ways, it's kind of nice actually when you don't know everybody because you can feel very free, I guess. And I feel like I spend a lot of my social time is engaging with people in Facebook groups. You find common interests and engage that way.
Yeah, for sure. I totally can relate to that, particularly for like I'm in a lot of like special needs moms groups for my
Yep.
daughter's syndrome. And sometimes I'm on there or seeing messages or responding to messages, but at the same time, I don't I don't know. I don't know how people do it. I don't have a lot of time right now. So
Yeah.
right now, I think we all live in lives or in times where we have more time, less time. When your
Yep.
kids are little, it's really hard. And then the pandemic, it's really, really, really
Right.
hard. I'm hoping to maybe do some play dates in the future.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I feel like having little kids, especially babies, when we're not in the pandemic, kind of opens up the doors to get to know people. People are more likely to smile at you and start a little conversation. When you've got a kid, kind of like I think that helps break the ice. And I feel like when I've been in that era of having the small kids, it felt like it was a little bit easier in some ways to make friends, but also complicated because of nap times and needing to get home and cranky kids. So
Yeah, yeah. My philosophy in life is like I choose my battles. Right now, I'm so focused on like my work life and my kids and my husband. That right now I feel fine. My
yeah.
cup is full. I'm starting to get sense like I'm starting to need kind of those like the other moms and physical connection, go
Hmm.
meet with them one-on-ones. And I'm sure I'm gonna seek that out, but I'm in the very much like just pick your battles right now. Right now
Yeah.
I have enough on my plate that I'm okay.
And it sounds like with your work situation, it sounds like there already is some of that like collaboration and connection and being intentional. I have, I think when I worked from home for Mayo Clinic, the only way that I really communicated with people ever was just through a text box,
Oh,
like chats. We never had video. We didn't have a camera.
yeah.
Um, my husband, it's business. It's like they have Skype meetings and some people are on camera, most of them aren't. And there's very little chit chat, I think.
Skype is still a thing.
Whatever they call it nowadays. All I know is that he doesn't do video. He just,
Oh.
they just listen to each other as like it's like a big conference call for the
Yeah,
most
yeah,
part.
yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah,
So it's just a different
absolutely.
culture. I think
Hmm.
after 1 year, it's almost like the 1 year anniversary of the pandemic. They had like a icebreaker, like team building meeting after 1 year. One.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's
That
just a different culture, a
yeah.
different set of people. They're engineers. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think you're right that have maybe like because at work and my coworkers and it's like very engaging, it kind of fills that social
mhm,
bonding up for me that
yeah.
I'm okay.
I feel like I get that even from just hosting this podcast. Like I get to have a conversation and talk with people. And we sometimes we chat a little bit before and after too. And I like that. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, we all need a sense of belonging, and we find it in different ways. And I think I've been able to find it within my company. And look forward to be able to build more in-person bonding and connections, once the pandemic is done. But absolutely, I think that sense of belonging and connection with people is so important, and not everyone can be in that culture, or maybe has that opportunity during the work time.
I'd like to ask a question as I'm usually wrapping up, and I'd just like to hear everyone's opinion because I know it's going to be different for everybody. Do you have any advice for people who are thinking about working from home or who want to make that decision if they're going to try to pursue it permanently? Some people are being asked to return back to the office and are having to make that decision. Do I want to go back to that life, or do I want to start something and look for something new?
I think it's our conversation made me reflect that it depends on corporate culture.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would want to work from home if I worked in a company where I felt isolated, because for me, connection is important.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on corporate culture. It depends on your individual preference. Some people might love that they don't have to talk with people, right? And can just get work done and, do whatever. I love the lack of commute. That's wonderful. I can get up at, if my daughter, or when my husband lets me sleep in, and he's at home and I can sleep in, I can wake up at 7:30 and start work at 8. That's awesome for me. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. It's a variety of variables that you have to take into account for what works best for you. So it's such a personal choice. I think like it can work for everyone if the right variables are there to meet your needs, but ultimately it has to meet your individual needs and kind of where you are in life. And so it's a kind of a hard blanket answer. I don't think it's a one size fit all.
I agree with you. What about this? What about the people who are interviewing for a new job, who are looking for a change? How can you find out about the culture?
Um, I think ask questions like, what do you do to create a sense of belonging for your remote workers, if that's what you're looking for? How what are their ways to engage, with others? Ask about company values, ask about and learn more about like department culture, because also like a company might have a philosophy, but who your immediate boss might have a different one.
Right.
So I think you can ask smart questions to make sure that the company is the right fit for you. One of the advices that I got from someone is like, when you're looking for a job, it has to be a two-way fit, right? It's not just how you fit in with whoever's hiring you, but how they fit in with you. And I think many times people are in jobs they hate. I thankfully have never been in a situation where I've hated where I've worked, because I've been very intentional about selecting roles that are a fit for me.
Good. Well, any last thoughts before we wrap up?
I think it's important to recognize how hopefully remote roles allow many working moms to be able to not make a trade-off between being moms and being professionals. And I think we're often as women put in those situations where we do have to make trade-offs. And so, I hope we can continue to create a system that allows people, if they want to continue working, to be able to work.
When I had my kids at home, I still had help with them while I was working or sleeping, actually, in my case. But just having them and being home just made sure that it meant that we had more time together in the long run. Like if I would have been commuting and dropping them off at daycare, we wouldn't have had as much time together. Though I know that a lot of people who work from home do have their kids off at daycare as well.
Yeah, it's such a personal situation, right? You craft it to, if you're able to, but it's also a privilege. And I recognize that it's a privilege because not everyone has that privilege to work from home or to have adequate childcare. And so I think it's important to also recognize.
Well, thank you, Regina. This has been April Malone with Regina Uribe, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.